welcome to the Total Soccer Show and the glorious return of Take It or Leave It. Yes, it's the show where you send us your hot takes. We either take them or we leave them. It's that simple. Today we're assessing your spicy opinions on transfer deadline day, the handball rule, the trend of Wrexham-style celebrity takeovers, and much, much more. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me to assess your hot takes, hey, it's Taylor Rocco. Hey, Taylor.
Hello, Ryan Bailey. I am taking that introduction. I was debating right up until the final whistle, but yeah, I'll take it in the end.
Would have been a very short episode if you left it. So thank you very much for doing so, Taylor. Good to see you. Graham Ruffin, hello.
Hello, Ryan Bailey. I'm taking that Hummel, I presume, Wimbledon shirt that you're wearing today. Sometimes I think to myself, why am I not a Wimbledon fan? Hummel shirts, Football Manager sponsor, fan
Pain
owned.
and suffering.
There it is, yeah. That's the full bingo card.
That's it. That's the whole spectrum. And most people should ask themselves, why am I not a Wimbledon fan, Graham? You were right to ask that, as is everyone on this mortal coil. Congratulations.
And yes, Graham, I know the answer, for what it's worth.
What is the answer?
England.
Ah, there it is. More specifically, London.
All right. Hello, Joe Lowry.
Hey, I think when Graham said he's taking that Hummel AFC Wimbledon shirt, he literally meant he's going to come and take it from you to add it to his collection. He's demanding it. I also think, I don't know if we have room in the old prod budget, the old production budget, for buttons, like giant buttons. One of them is the take it button, and one of it is the leave it button. Like, I think we need to gamify this slightly more, and I also just want to press giant buttons. Can we do that, please?
Maybe we've got the budget for Cadbury's chocolate buttons, I think, maybe not real buttons at work.
I don't know what that is, but I do like chocolate, so also fine with that.
That's all you need to know, Joe.
Yeah. That's it.
Great.
Delicious alternative. There we go. Before we get into our Tioli, take it or leave it takes, as everyone's calling it, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is the best way to support us. We've got bonus episodes, bonus video, and access to our Discord server, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show, please. And thank you very much to everybody who supports us via this medium. And one more reminder, we're on the YouTubes. Smash like and subscribe, link in show notes. And you can see the best shirt that AFC Wimbledon ever made, which I'm sporting right now. Wonderful stuff. All right, let's get to our takes. This one from almost midlife crisis. I think that's how you pronounce it. The single biggest issue facing the game today is the nightmare that is the handball rule. It used to be simple, ball to hand or hand to ball. They've ruined it, made it more confusing, and the instant replay stuff is only making it worse. Now, Taylor, I'm inclined to agree, because I don't know if I know what the handball rules are anymore, but also I don't care to learn so I can keep complaining about them.
That really resonated with Graham.
Well said.
I feel like I know where Graham's going to be on this one. Yeah. So in terms of the biggest issue facing the game today, money is probably the biggest issue, but that's no fun and annoying and probably non-salvageable. So yeah, I'm into this one. I'll take this one, because it does feel like it used to be like sort of, it was like, it's always been subjective. It's never been objective, that is a handball, that is not a handball. But I do think it used to be easier to say, and I think there used to be like generally a bit more common sense to it, so that it was usually only the club that was aggrieved by the non-call feeling like it should have been a penalty, when most people, neutrals included, would say like, no, that wasn't a pen, or yes, that was a pen. And now it is really tricky, and I think with VAR and with the super slow motion, things can look deliberate. Things that are not deliberate can then be given as penalties. Things that do seem deliberate are not given sometimes, and it gets very confusing very quickly. And so I think for a rule that is meant to be fairly straightforward, I think anytime you define anything, you tend to open up loopholes and make things a little bit murkier unintentionally. But generally speaking, don't use your hands is a pretty core aspect of the game. And it gets really confusing really quickly with the inclusion of technology.
Yeah, and I think the introduction of VAR is key to that, right? Because it makes it a full scientific process. When the rules of soccer are actually quite loose compared to other sports, it's such a fluid game that generally speaking, I think the best check and balance in soccer refereeing is, does that feel fair? And so with handballs, yes, there were laws and there were ways that the laws were interpreted by referees. But I do think when in the pre-VAR age, that was a check and balance that was used by referees. Does that feel like a handball inside the box? Does that feel like it should be a penalty? And now VAR has often, or we see it frequently, taking away that freedom for the referee to make their own sort of interpretation. And it feels like, and it's not just that, it's not just the handball rule that we see that with VAR in soccer, but it feels like that is where that is most acute, right? Is with the handball rule, and particularly things like they introduced the T-shirt line of the arm as a distinction. what is that? Like, players could... You roll up your sleeve a little bit more, the T-shirt line is higher, and even if it does strike the T-shirt arm, is that handball? I hated that. I don't know if that's still in the law, similar to Ryan. They've changed it so many times that I've given up.
Did it used to be the shoulder as well? I don't know.
I don't know. There's been so many different changes. But ultimately, I'm leaving this because we can all agree that the single biggest issue facing the game today is the threat of England winning the World Cup again. So I think we can all unite behind that.
Pretty nascent threat. It's out there. Yeah. Okay. That's a fair point
for me.
Okay. I suppose, Joe, the difficulty here is it's hard to codify fairness and intention, right? So, like the Real Madrid Marseille game last week, where we had the very harsh handball penalty. I don't think many people would say there was intention behind it. Whether it was fair or not, did it impede Real Madrid? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a moment I've definitely seen and am intimately familiar with and remember in great vivid detail after discussing it on this show.
Good.
Joe, sliding challenge, like basically hand down to like basically brace himself as he's sliding in, and the ball hits the hand. Clearly unintentional. There's no other place the hand could have been, but it does make contact with the ball, and so it's given.
Yeah, I'm just not buying this whole... I feel like this is... I'm not buying this idea that the handball rule used to be simple, right? I just don't... that feels like, oh man, the grass was greener in 1990. You know, like things are always better as you get further and further away from them, right? I think that's just a principle of how we experience life, is that things seem rosier as we remember them than when we live them. I just don't... I recognize that IFAB has changed the handball rule a bunch, and I think that has been the thing that has actually caused the most challenges of all this, is that IFAB just needs to pick a rule and leave it forever, right? I mean, just pick something, let's leave it, don't mess with it anymore. That has happened too much, and I grant that has been a little bit of a problem. There was a stretch of time right in the early 2020s when they were calling so many handballs, and it did rise in its frequency there. But really, I just don't believe that this was ever as simple as ball to hand or hand to ball. Like, I think someone said it already. It's always been subjective. It will always be subjective to an extent. My trick with this is just ignore all this stuff. It's boring. It's not fun. And so just skip it and don't even talk about it unless it massively impacts a game.
But that's the thing. In soccer, it does massively impact games, right? Soccer is not other sports. If you give a goal, a penalty, a goal changes the... What's your counterpoint goal? I'm
already bored by everything you just said. It's this stuff, it sucks. It's boring. I don't...
Counterpoint, nothing really matters in general.
That's fine. I think that I will leave this take, mostly because I just take issue with the fact that, it used to be so much simpler. Maybe it did, and I totally grant that VAR has provided more scrutiny for all of this. Heaven forbid we try to get calls right. Let's dump that out. Can't be doing that. But my genuine thought, truly, when I was thinking about this question, soccer's kind of great. I don't know. I don't really have a lot of issues with how the flow of a soccer game works. It doesn't need changing. Everything's fine. It's a good game. It's a fun sport. Fixture congestion is way larger of an issue than the handball rule. That continues to be a problem. FIFA is talking about a 64-team World Cup. There are far bigger concerns than the handball rule, which is just fine. Let's just stick with it and not mess with it anymore, and everybody's going to stop whining about it in a decade, or at least whining about it more than we already do when we feel aggrieved.
Yeah, I certainly agree that there's way too much talk, and I come from Scotland where this is you could turn on any football TV show or radio show. We're utterly obsessed with chat around VAR and handball rules. And you're going to think I'm making this up. I know people who have given up watching live soccer matches here in Scotland because of VAR. They actually exist. There's a Kilmarnock fan that I know, a guy who worked on the building site where I bought my house, and he stopped going to Kilmarnock games because of VAR. So people, I think people need to get a grip to that extent.
What was the actual reason? Is it the game's gone?
I mean, Kilmarnock finished third the season he stopped going, so which is good for them. So I can't think of another reason. Maybe didn't have the money. I don't know. But that's the reason that, honestly, people hate it. They do hate it, and maybe they're just using it as a vehicle to complain about other things about the sport. But I agree that we could certainly tone it down. But I wouldn't go as far as extreme as Joe. Just because we should tone it down and maybe not care so much doesn't mean that we can't care at all. And I do think the handball rule is a bit of an issue at the moment. Equally, I don't know how you sort it without getting rid of VAR, and that's not happening.
I think there's a level of nuance that Tioli does not really invite. I think Joe is right that fixture congestion is probably the biggest issue, or one of the two biggest issues facing modern soccer at present. I think VAR, for all of the quote-unquote evils, or at least the frustrations, Like, lest we forget, not long ago, Thierry Henry is keeping a ball in bounds with his hand. And Diego Maradona totally scores a completely legit goal. Don't worry about that one. So, I mean, like, I think I would rather have VAR intervene with those types of moments and then have the kind of nuances and the intricacies of the debate versus that was an obvious handball that just wasn't called, or that was definitely not a handball that was called. It is nice to have the kind of checks and balances and the reassurance that it will be mostly given correctly. I do think the kind of consistent rule changes and just little adjustments to the way games are officiated reverberates more so than like FIFA might expect or IFAB might expect. Because you can see it even in like local amateur soccer, how the handball rule kind of largely stays the same from one season to the next, but there's so many new adjustments to like the way officials are talking to players and players are expected to talk to officials and how this thing is enforced or not enforced. And I think like changing the rules as often as we seem to and adjusting them just ever so slightly tends to have unintended consequences. But I'm not sure that makes it the biggest issue facing soccer. So in the end, I guess I'll switch from taking to leaving.
Okay. Well, it's I'd love to trickle down to like that lower level or youth soccer, Taylor. Like you'll go to an under-10s game and the kids are putting their hands behind their backs as the cross comes in.
Oh, yeah.
And, like,
surely they're not doing that, are they?
Yeah, I've seen it.
I don't know if I love that or hate that. I think I hate that.
Yeah.
Feels like very modern soccer.
They're going to start cutting holes in the back of their socks as well. That's going to be a thing.
I mean, God, that will never make sense to me. We've answered that on the show, why people do that. It still does not make sense. I'll say, growing up, I was always told by my British coaches that Americans don't watch enough soccer or footy. And so that's one of the major reasons why we're not good at it, is because we don't see it enough. We don't kind of get used to it. So I would argue 10-year-olds knowing to put their arms behind their back means 10-year-olds are watching some soccer, or at least their parents are.
Indeed.
Ryan would do the draft excluder as well behind the wall. I've seen a 10-year-old do that.
There'd be a few of them, wouldn't there?
What's your answer to this, Ryan? Take it or leave it?
I am only leaving it on the fact that I don't think it's the single biggest issue, because I agree with you, Joe. I think fixture congestion would be a bigger one.
Yeah, and to be clear, like there are even significantly larger issues than fixture congestion. Taylor kind of already got to some of that stuff, but
multi-club ownership.
That's like more
FIFA in general,
more sad.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and I don't know that I want that this morning. You know,
how long have Manchester City had 115 charges hanging over their head? Like 19 years now? Is it just curious?
Yep. Yeah. Longer than those 10-year-olds have been tucking their hands behind their back.
Goodness me. Almost midlife crisis. Thank you very much for your hot take there. We take a quick break. When we come back, we're talking about the transfer deadline. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to Tioli, as most of the cool kids are calling it. Peter Shark has been in touch with this one. He's been in touch with this one on the Discord. The transfer deadline should close before the season kicks off. Hard agree from me, Joe. What's the point of it not closing when the season kicks off? I ask you that now.
I think there are some reasons for it to be the way that it is. So one reason for it to be the way that it is, because I was wondering about this and really thought this through yesterday when I was preparing for this. One reason is that you need time to do deals, right? So the Independent had a really helpful
They have all summer for that,
article.
Joe. Go on.
What's that?
They have all summer to do that.
Yeah, well, kind of. The Independent had a really good argument about this. And in the article that talked about all this stuff, they mentioned a quote from an agent who basically said to them, how are we supposed to get everything done following a major summer tournament? Like, think about how the structure of the soccer calendar goes. Let's think about this next summer as an example. The European season is going to end in May. Then you have a World Cup taking up more than a month of the summer, 40-plus days of the summer. More than that, even when you're counting the initial camps. And then you have the actual club season starting in August. Like, that is insane. When are you supposed to go and get an Alexander Isak transfer saga in there? Like, you can't do it. I think you do need some time to do these things, and that's not an every summer issue in that exact same way. But as see segment 1, fixture congestion becomes more and more of a thing, and the season runs longer, and you have the Club World Cup every 4 years, and you have the World Cup every 4 years, and then those things happen even more frequently. You do need time to actually make stuff happen. That's part of the reason here that I think this is the way that it is now. I want to leave this, though. Even though I recognize it makes sense to have all of this stuff done before the season starts, that makes complete sense. I understand that. I want to leave it because it's so much more fun this way. Like, just think about the experience that we have now versus what this experience would be like. Let's just think about it practically for the four of us. So we're doing preview content for the start of the season. Let's say it's the Premier League season. And we do all that stuff, then the season starts, and that's really fun. And then you're kind of in the grind of the season. And this experience, by the way, mirrors that of the fan, too, right? Like, fans are excited about a new season. They're thinking about it. They're reading previews. They're talking with their friends about it. Then the season starts, and then you're into the grind, right? And you don't have quite as much to talk about as you did before the season started, because now you're met with the reality of how mediocre your team is in all likelihood. And then, now, the way things are is, after a month, you get another bump. You have more hope. You have your team being able to go out there and sign players before the transfer deadline closes. You have that second wave of fun that comes with the transfer deadline day. I think it should stay exactly as it is. Staggered fun is what I'm all about. I want more opportunities for fun, not less, and Ryan hates fun. That's the takeaway.
I do hate fun, that's true. But can I
fun.
counterpoint you, Joe, in that I
Yes.
think there are integrity issues with having it not close at the start of the season. Let's say I'm a promoted team, I play Man City in August, my fellow promoted team plays them in September,
Sure.
they make a 400 million worth of signings between those two games. There's a lack of integrity there, do you not think?
No, there is for sure. I think, though, that would be, to me, within the acceptable range of lack of integrity. Like, we talk about the Supporter Shield and MLS not having the balance to it. So it's not a perfect measure of who the best team is, but it's the best one MLS has. To think about that is like maybe outside of the range of like an integrity-filled regular season schedule. But for England, if you have injuries or if you have players that are coming in off of international breaks, whatever it is, there's already an acceptable, widely accepted range of a lack of integrity that we just sort of accept as part of our experience of watching these leagues. And we don't ding Man City or whatever for having a lucky schedule just because they got Arsenal after an international break. I mean, that's a bad example, but you get what I'm saying.
I think this would anything, apparently. So yeah.
This would fit into that band for me of like it's a byproduct of the system, and there are already existing byproducts that we're all fine with.
Why is integrity the standard now? Where did that come from? Like,
Well,
a team making a signing is now a lack of integrity?
Well, no,
it's an uneven playing field, right?
Yeah.
But we already have the January transfer window in the middle of the season where teams can do that.
And if a team gets, like, if you play Man City and they're missing their three best players due to injury or international obligation or something, and then your fellow promoted team plays them at full strength, like, is that a lack of integrity? Isn't that just the intricacies of the schedule and the variations of a full season?
But that's not dictated by rules. That's injuries. There's a rule saying you can change your team wholesale 1 week to the next during the start of the season.
Well, here's my point that I think sort of nullifies this to some extent, and the reason why I'm leaving it. Which season are we talking about? The start of which season? Because each league starts at different times. Like the Eredivisie starts August 8th, I believe, this year. Premier League started August 15th. Serie A later, Bundesliga later. So, like, I think like a lot of countries would just sort of push back their season and wait for everyone else's window to close to be like, oh, that player that you wanted to sell and weren't able to, we'll take him for half price. Like, I think that creates its own confusion and uncertainty.
And they tried this. The Premier League tried this.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys remember this, but before COVID,
It went
18-19 season, the Premier League said we are going to close the transfer window before the start of the season. They were the only league in Europe to do that. And because the transfer window is essentially just a window where teams can register players, right? So teams could still sell players to Serie A teams, they could still register them, and the Premier League clubs felt like sitting ducks, where every other team around Europe could just wait them out until their window was closed, and then and they could still sign players. So they abandoned that fairly quickly. And I think that's, I in principle, I might take this because I just think it's a little bit cleaner. I take Joe's point. It maybe is sometimes a source of fun. I also think
it's always a source of fun.
No,
it's always a source of fun.
I think you could flip it. Like Man City, for example, they played a few games this season and they went, oh dear, we need a goalkeeper. So they went and got Donnarumma. Would it be more fun if they had to play the whole season with the mistakes that they made during the summer without the evidence? I think you could argue it would be a little bit more fun. So there's arguments on both sides. My question is, practically, I think this is almost impossible because there is always going to be a league or multiple leagues that are going to keep their window open so that they're going to have the advantage. I think Turkey does it to this day. Turkey's window is open a couple of weeks later than the rest of Europe. And so it's just not practically possible, I think.
Yeah, and I think to Joe's point, like, if you are Man City, then the argument would be, well, you need to have a more rigorous preseason to ensure that you've gotten your business done and you know exactly where everybody fits. But then, like, can you have a more rigorous preseason when you have the Club World Cup and all these other international obligations? Plus, with modern soccer, you're being asked to play a game in Hong Kong and then a game in Moscow and then a game in New York. Like, I don't think you can actually do a lot of those things to make your season logical or your preseason logical. So I leave it in the end. I apologize, Ryan.
I think there is a practical limitation to this, Taylor, and you got to that well. Ryan, actually, I am more sensitive, it sounds like, to your argument about integrity than these other two guys. Like, what you said made perfect sense to me. I'm just willing to accept that as like a limitation of my staggered fun approach. That's fine. Like, I'm totally willing to accept that.
Staggered fun.
The only way, as Graham said, the only way that this could work, it would be, basically, it would have to be mandated by UEFA that all of these leagues have to have their transfer deadlines at the same time, right? Which is not something that UEFA currently gets to decide because they're all at different times. That's the only way this could happen. Like, the Premier League might be willing to do something like this if every other league in Europe, the ones that they're most realistically competing with for talent, are in the same boat doing the exact same thing. Until that happens, we won't see this for reasons that Graham has said. Maybe it happens someday. Maybe this is possible, but I like how it is.
All I can picture with Joe's staggered fun is Captain Holt from Brooklyn Nine-Nine with the "Why is no one having fun?" I specifically requested it. That's what I'm hearing right now from Joe.
I just can't believe that like nobody else is hopping aboard. The transfer deadline day is awesome. Like the transfer window is the best, maybe the best part of soccer. And then the start of the season is like the next best part of soccer. I just feel like you really want to just do those things at the same time. It's like getting to go to 2 birthday parties instead of 1. I don't know. There's pizza at both. Get twice as much pizza.
Weirdly, I think trades would make for like a more balanced system. If you had like the transfer window closed at a certain time and then you had trades for like another month, that would be fascinating. But there's those pesky European labor laws and protections for workers that come into play that make that impossible.
Pesky laws. Oh, who needs them? Yeah, I think I'm surprised. I thought there'd be more support for this one, but here we go. Never mind. Peter Shark, thank you very much indeed for your hot take there.
Felt very passive aggressive.
It didn't sound that way in my head, but it came out that way, didn't it?
Accusing us all of having no integrity.
Yeah, right.
I thought there'd be more support from parentheses those idiots.
It's just two sides of the coin. Like where Joe says it's fun to have staggered fun. I think I agree with Graham's point where Man City are stuck with, we got to do this until January. There was a wise man, his name went by Arsene Wenger, who said either you have the transfer window open for the entire season or none of it. That was his view.
He also said that the World Cup should be once every 2 years.
Yeah, disqualified.
He was paid a lot of money to say that, though.
That's true.
Yeah, there we go. Peter Shark, thank you very
Integrity.
much. Here we go again. Andrew has sent this take through our Discord. Thank you very much, Andrew. Let's everybody brace ourselves for this one. Claudio and Daniel Reyna effectively nuked. Yep, they effectively nuked this entire World Cup cycle with their antics. Even though the main actors are not currently involved, their actions created interpersonal and cultural fractures that are still affecting the team today. Moment of silence to take that one in. Taylor, would you like to lead us?
Sure. I will leave this one. However, I do think that I will probably end up thinking there is more truth to it, generally speaking, than maybe my other co-hosts. But I will leave it because they certainly do not deserve all the blame. I think Greg Berhalter, like version 2, probably wasn't going to work regardless. I know Joe is a big fan of second cycles and thinks they always work. I tend to disagree. I'm not sure they actually do work that well. Sorry, Joe. Joe doesn't really believe that I'm lying. But I do think that the Reynas inserted themselves kind of needlessly into a situation where their adult son probably could have handled things and handled things a little bit better. I think they did create needless drama, division, and intense media scrutiny against the team, the coach, and U.S. Soccer as an organization. They called a lot of people out very publicly and had high-profile friends who could kind of back them up and do the same. And I do think it created a lot of rifts. I think it created a lot of awkwardness around the team. And then it obviously leads to the post-World Cup comments, which then get blown up even more. And I think led to a lot of division and exposed just a lot of frustration within the team, or at least within a few players within that team. And I think those effects are still being felt. I think it's colored the way I at least understand Gio Reyna and perceive Gio Reyna. I think I have a more favorable impression of him now. But I certainly think it did not help things. But it was not the only problem. They are not the ones that created the situation we find ourselves in at present. There's a lot of other factors in there. But the Reynas didn't help, but they are not the one. So I will leave this one.
Very well.
Yeah, I agree with that word for word. It's not the problem, but it was a factor. I do believe that the Reyna scandal was an element in the vibes around the team nosediving after the World Cup. Everyone talked about how healthy the camp was before the World Cup. It was a factor in recruiting dual nationals. We kept on hearing about that. And then afterwards, in a kind of intangible way, you could just tell something had changed. And that, whatever that thing was that changed, kind of is still there to an extent. It's still sort of lingering on. So I don't think it's helped things, but I don't think you could ever argue that it's the sole reason that the US has struggled since then. Who's going to do the book? Well, like, we are going to hear the full story from someone. Is it Pulisic? When he, like, everyone's too close to the subject matter right now to do it, but when they retire, or maybe like if it's Berhalter when he's not working in MLS or something like that, someone's going to tell the full story. Who do we think it's going to be?
Weston McKennie on accident? I don't know.
I would read DeAndre Yedlin's book if and when he writes a book. I feel like there's a lot of stories in there. He's had a lot of like significant moments, and he was in that team, so maybe it's Yedlin.
Doesn't need to come from Taylor. Doesn't need to come from someone who's like right in the middle of it. Other than like, I know he was in the squad, and I'm sure he knows what went on. But like, I don't know.
Sco Jally, written under a pseudonym.
Yeah, pseudonym. Yeah.
Gio Reyna, edited by Claudio and Danielle Reyna.
Yeah.
If I can also like, I will make things awkward for at least myself, maybe with this one, but like. The way they paint Greg Berhalter as like basically they come out and say he is an abuser that like beat his wife when they were dating is more or less the allegation, allegedly. I don't know how I need to protect myself here. And I have friends who still talk about Greg Berhalter as though he is an abuser, as though he is this person that like we don't really know what he's like behind closed doors and stuff. And I suppose that's true, but like they knew about this, the Reynas, because they were like, it was what? Danielle Reyna was roommates in college with forgive me, I can't remember. I feel bad calling her Greg Berhalter's wife while making this point, but here we are. Like, that's why she knew about it. She knew about it for decades. They decided to make it public in this moment because they were frustrated with the way the coach was dealing with their son. And I would argue, like personal opinion, dealing with him correctly because he came in like carrying injuries from the season, not fully fit, not fully ready to go, not fully integrated into the team,
not
what have you,
but training, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly, and it felt a little bit like they were playing upon the kind of like prevailing sentiment of the moment to be like, this guy who you all respect is actually a terrible person, even though we've been like best friends for decades, but now we're really mad at him, and it just felt very disingenuous. Brought a lot of like personal issues into the spotlight, and in my opinion, personal issues that. I kind of believe the narrative that had been dealt with, that Berhalter had done a lot of kind of personal work on himself and in his marriage and met with her family to discuss what had happened and make sure that they were okay with them continuing to date each other after they get back together after like a year or whatever it is. And it just felt very opportunistic and disingenuous at the same time. So I think that's where I carry a lot of frustration towards the Reynas still, but I don't think it's the reason why we were bad at the Copa America.
Okay. Joe, your take on this one?
Yeah, I'm leaving this. I don't think we have the evidence to make this claim, although I would be curious to hear Andrew's perspective, because I like hearing Andrew talk about soccer, so let us know in the Discord more about your thoughts here. I mean, it is likely that there are some personality issues in the locker room that have lingered. It is also likely that that's true for almost every soccer team on the planet. I will grant that what happened in the 2022 World Cup was far more extreme than most of those, or at least far more public than most of those. But to look at this in a couple of different ways very quickly, Gio's personal path back to the national team has been really smooth, right? I mean, by and large, he was brought back at the first possible opportunity after 2022. That was the March window in 23, after that Winter World Cup. He played a key role in the Nations League that June of 2023, then was injured, classic, but was given the first call-up that Berhalter, when he was back coaching this team, could give to Gio Reyna in that October window. It was really good in those games. Got 45 minutes in each game, which is all his husk of a body could handle, apparently. And then you have the whole injury issues, which have continued, and Poch not taking to him. It sure doesn't seem like Poch has taken to him at all. That's a separate issue. That is Pochettino's thing. Like, I mean, it's sort of a clean slate at that point as far as Gio's relationship to the coaching staff is concerned, because it's a new coaching staff. That's part of this. Looking away from Gio, though, because I don't think that we have a ton of evidence that he has continued to be some sort of locker room cancer. I grant that there are probably many of players in the U.S. pool that do not like Gio Reyna at all, and that's perfectly fine. They would be completely well-founded in that take, it seems like. But to look at like why the U.S. have struggled, to me it is just so clear that the reason for the U.S.'s lack of progress as a team is that their individual players haven't progressed. Like, it is so difficult to name more than 3 players who have really improved since the 2022 World Cup. I mean, Chris Richards feels like one of them. Question mark? Balogun,
Jedi.
maybe, that he's at least in the pool now. And Jedi, I mean, yeah, I guess. Jedi, that's 3. Maybe there's another one in there somewhere. I don't really think that there is. None of these meaningful players, anyway. That to me is just so clearly the issue. And if you're looking for another issue, maybe it's Greg Berhalter, who's publicly talked about how he was too lax with the team at the Copa America. And we saw sort of an implosion there and some disappointing things that happened in that tournament. And then you end up with a reset after that. So I think you can find other issues, many other issues actually outside of all of the Reyna drama. To be honest, I don't really think that stuff has been anywhere close to the top of the list for this current cycle, which has been a disappointment so far. But I just don't see the whole Reyna thing being at the top.
Yeah, I would largely agree with that, Joe. The only way that I see it as having like a bigger knock on than maybe you're suggesting is it just starts the ball of negativity rolling that just becomes difficult to stop at some point. I just don't know how to really like quantify that in terms of how it impacts things on the pitch. But it did feel like a sort of watershed moment in how this team was seen and talked about, and maybe what the vibes were within that camp as well.
Good stuff. All right, Andrew, thank you very much indeed for your take. I think we just about kept the TSS fire truck of lawyers in the lawyer station. No sirens sounding at this point. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we're talking about Wrexham-style celebrity takeovers and the legends at Tottenham. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to Take It or Leave It. Cooper has been in touch on our Discord with this hot one. Here we go. The Wrexham knockoffs are the worst thing to come out of Wrexham's takeover. It's becoming gratuitous to see a celebrity buy a random soccer team and make a documentary about it, especially when it gets to the point of Brady at Birmingham. So I guess, Graham, we're talking about Birmingham, clubs like that, and maybe Necaxa, the also Disney documentaried Eva Longoria, Liga MX's vehicle as well. Is that the worst thing to come out of Wrexham's takeover? I'm not sure. What are we thinking? Are we taking this or are we leaving this? Graham's gone off to do something else, so why don't we talk to Joe? Joe, what do you think?
What just happened?
Is this actually what? I'm so confused. I'm going to leave this as Graham comes back. I'm going to leave this. I got to be honest. I'm having fun. I'm having a good time. Today's a fun-filled episode for me.
Scheduled, staggered fun, tiered fun.
Absolutely, it's on the calendar. I've penciled out 15 minutes or so for this fun. I don't really see a harm in this. Like what's the harm? I don't understand what the downside is. You don't have to watch this stuff if you don't want to. First of all, so that's fine. Problem solved there. And if you do want to, it's like a sort of sometimes maybe a little bit of an interesting look at how soccer teams are run or into a community. Like I know the Wrexham show has gotten a decent bit of hate. Don't really understand why. I'm not personally invested in their rise, and I'm not personally invested in Tom Brady and Birmingham. In fact, I think it'd be funny if they were bad, because I think it's fun when that kind of stuff happens. But is it bad to have more exposure for those things? Is it bad to have like people trying to create somewhat interesting things, even if they're not a hit for you, dear listener? I don't think so. I'm leaving this, and I don't really understand the basis for taking it, to be honest.
I'm not taking it for a very different reason. Mine is Rob McElhenney specific. I'll get into that later. I think, Joe, for me, anytime I start to feel like I'm being sold something, and being sold something like via indirect means, I immediately do not like it and do not want it.
Patreon.com/Total Soccer, by the way, guys.
That's the one. No, like I'm trying to think of a good example outside of this, but basically, like it just feels like what this is millionaires buying clubs and then wanting to make money off of those clubs, which is what millionaires and billionaires have been doing since, I guess, the 90s at least. Yeah. But when it comes to soccer, it just feels disingenuous because, like with the Wrexham one, the whole first episode is Rob McElhenney, like, I'm from, like working class Philly, and it's all about like what the team means to the community, and that might be true, but that is not Ryan Reynolds' narrative for why he's doing this. And when we have the example of Ryan Reynolds, owning Mint Mobile and owning a gin or the company or whatever it is, and having all these different things that are pulling in money, it starts to feel very much like someone's financial manager told them, hey, this is a good way to make money, and you're a celebrity, you've got built-in clout, we can build a documentary around it, you're going to make money off of it. And it just feels transparently obvious that they are using this to make money while trying to not be transparently obvious by making it like this sort of narrative thing about like, isn't it a kooky thing that we bought this team and we're trying to figure it out? It's going to be fun. And I feel like even with the Eva Longoria one, there's a crossover where Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney show up, or like she asks them for their insight, and it just feels like now we're doing crossovers on these things.
They own the
they're all owners.
So it's like a spin-off. So
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds and McElhenney, or Rob Mack, whatever we're calling him now, they
Exactly.
actually own the Caxa. So.
That is why I'm leaving this one, is because, like, personally, as a person who has loved Always Sunny since the first season, continues to very much enjoy it, it has made me not love Rob McElhenney that much. And I think the podcast does a little bit of that. And I always feel awkward on this show speaking ill of people I've never met and never will meet, most likely. We tried to have on the show. Didn't get that one approved. But it has felt sort of like in his interactions and increased interactions with Ryan Reynolds, he has become more, I don't know, I perceive him as being more Hollywood, as being just a little bit more phony. And I think to have somebody you really like and really enjoy from a creative writing standpoint just feel a little bit like not quite what you thought they were. I guess that's Hollywood. I guess that's on me for believing in a narrative of a person I've never met and do not know. But that has been a kind of sizable bummer for me. And the changing of the name and the beautification and the name dropping in the podcasts, it all just feels a little bit like, okay, I see what this is now, and it's kind of a bummer for me.
For me, I'm going to leave this also. I am on Team Joe for this one because I think it's for all the negativity you could have around this, I think it's fun. I think of all the nefarious owners there are in world soccer, I will take some celebrities
They're the worst.
doing this kind of thing any day. Over a Saudi takeover, over a nation state, over a hedge fund owning a club, I will take some celebrities having a bit of fun and making a documentary any day of the week. And there's a reason for that, and it's that I am all for growing the sport in the United States. I moved to the US in 2011 when it felt much more niche, did soccer, than it does today. And I think a big reason for that is sort of NBC broadcasts of the Premier League. I think I've said that before. I think it really helps sort of rise the tide. And shows like this, I think. My wife will not watch a soccer game. She's no interest in doing so. But we together have watched all of the Wrexham episodes, and she's really engaged in it. And if it can bring people in like that who are not sort of soccer hardcore folk to be more interested in soccer in this country and beyond, I don't see why that's a bad thing, personally.
I don't disagree with that at all. But the point here, so I'm hard taking this one, right?
Shocker.
The point is, shocker. The point is that what Wrexham have done is brilliant, right? As cynical as I am about the whole Wrexham project, there's no denying what they've done as a project, as just like a bit of content or a series of content is brilliant. It's a really good show. Not every club can be Wrexham, and so it's a hard eye roll from me when I see like other celebrities trying to buy clubs, trying to replicate what Wrexham have done, because the fact of the matter is, well, first of all, not everyone is Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney. Like, they don't have the personality of those two people. Also, not every club is interesting enough for a documentary. There was one in Scotland here last season with St Johnstone, right, with their new American owners. And it was so boring, so surface level. Because, and I don't even mean this as an insulting way, you couldn't do one about Stirling Albion. Not every club has that like depth of storytelling to tell in a way like they do with Wrexham. They scouted around Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds and whoever they partnered up with. It wasn't the first club that they went for. They looked at Hartlepool, they looked at a couple other clubs as well, and that was because they were looking for clubs that were ripe for this kind of thing. And I just think the number of clubs now that are trying to replicate it is tiresome. And I hate watch the Birmingham City documentary. There's none of the charm of Welcome to Wrexham. It's so focused on Tom Brady, who is like an ass in it. I was trying to think of a different way to describe him, but it's just all about him. There were a couple of really distasteful moments where he clearly has, this has turned into a bit of a Tom Brady rant, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Who could have seen this coming?
He clearly just has contempt for Birmingham as a city. There's a really telling moment where he turns up to the training ground.
He has contempt for a lot of things.
Yeah, I think he does. He turns up to the Birmingham training ground with his buddies, and they're kind of ragging on the training ground and, oh, look at what a dump this place is or something. Now, granted, it's probably not up to the standard of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers training facility or whatever. To me, it looked like a pretty standard training ground, and Tom Brady goes along with it, and he's like, yeah, you know, what a dump this is, but, you know, we're changing things or whatever, and I'm like, this guy, man, the vibe of him is just talking down to people the whole time. And it's similar with, you know, Ryan, you were saying...
That's some ugly American stuff right there, of coming in and being like, this doesn't look the way I expect it to look, and therefore it's bad. Like, sure, 100 years of history, but whatever.
There's honestly 2 or 3 moments like that from Brady that really kind of the mask slips a little bit. But even broaden it out from my Tom Brady rant. Ryan, you were saying like you'd rather these people than other owners of clubs, which I don't necessarily disagree with. We're talking about like state ownership or whatever.
Can I just say, I feel like you guys are both ignoring that episode in the second season in which Ryan Reynolds murders a Welsh journalist with a bone saw. Like, I feel like you guys forget that happened.
But they did it. They had a little cool animation, and they did it in a pithy way. Yeah,
he dressed up as Deadpool when he did it.
Yeah.
It was fine. Yeah,
it was fine. It was cool. I enjoyed that episode.
He had the personality to carry it, Taylor.
That's all the difference, man.
Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney have now partnered up with private equity. Like, do you remember that from the last season? Like, they brought those people in. Tom Wagner is private equity. These people are not in it for communities and for local fans. They are in it to turn a profit as quickly as they can. And you know what? Maybe that's just the way football is now. But it doesn't mean I have to like it. Doesn't mean I have to feel warm about it in any way. So that's why I'm taking this one.
I'd take that point. When they go and do the community things like, we're building this playground presented by Hewlett-Packard. There's a lot of that kind of stuff going on, I suppose.
What you all have done in this one, especially Graham talking about like how Sterling couldn't have one of these, Sterling Albion. Like, we're due for an Alan Partridge, like, British Office style, like, bumbling semi-celebrity takes over a small club and, like, can't understand why it's not working. I feel like that would work really well with Alan Partridge or Ricky Gervais or somebody along those lines, acting very self-important and being very confused why people aren't super into it.
I said this to Lucy about Rangers, who are like in a complete crisis at the moment, and there's things like Russell Martin took their players open water swimming to get away from the pressure of the city and the pressure of Glasgow. And I thought there was a really good Office-style comedy series about the Rangers board. You can just imagine someone on the phone being like, "He's done what? He's taken them open water swimming." I would watch the heck out of that show. So someone should get on that.
Yeah. Hey, pampered soccer players, do you want to get in minus 15 water and have a swim around to forget about your troubles? Let's do it. Let's all do it.
Yeah.
Wonderful stuff. Cooper, thank you very much for your take. One more quick one for this episode from Lady Tottenham of Hotspur on our Discord. It's Spurs related, believe it or not. Son Heung-min is a bigger Spurs legend than Harry Kane. Graham, I'm having trouble taking this one. I can see where Lady Tottenham of Hotspur is coming from. But where I come from is in 20 to 30 years, if you look back at those two players as a Tottenham fan, one is one of the greatest strikers that England's ever had, and the other one is a very good servant, obviously, to Tottenham Hotspur, but he's not one of the greatest strikers that England has ever had.
I think
does England striker make him a Spurs legend?
I think so for Spurs fans,
Ryan,
arguably.
Are you making the England argument, or are you making the player quality argument?
Player quality argument, I would say. He's up.
Okay.
He's in a tier above. Son, right?
I mean,
for sure.
I think,
in that regard, yes.
I think this depends on two things, right? One, what's your definition of a legend? So are we talking about quality of player, or a legend in the sense of that player being an icon, which is maybe more about standing with supporters and how much they are liked? And also, is this Spurs fans deciding this, or are we being asked, like, of these two players? Because that sentiment is also going to be a factor in this. Kane was the better player for Spurs than Son was. I don't think that's in question. Kane is the club's all-time top scorer. Son is fifth in that list, which is impressive for someone who was a winger for most of his time there. But you could have argued that Kane was the best striker in the world when he was at Spurs, and I don't know if Son was ever at that level for his position. But this question clearly comes from the fact that Son stayed, right? He stayed to lift the trophy, which was this era-defining thing for Spurs. Kane left to win that silverware at another club. I think the thing that really irked Tottenham fans wasn't really him leaving to join Bayern. I think it was him agitating to join Man City that one summer. I think that was the moment he became more of a mercenary in their eyes. And this was a player they sang about being one of their own. So I think that moment hurt. So I am leaving this, but I think mainly because I'm not a Spurs fan. I would probably feel differently if I was a Spurs fan. I tried to think, who's the player who's going to have the statue outside the stadium 10 years from now? I honestly wasn't sure about that. Is it Kane?
Eric
Dyer. There we go. It's Eric Dyer. That's what.
It's Sergio Romero booting somebody. That's the one.
That's going to be Eric Dyer climbing over some seats to have a stern word with someone.
So I like that one. It's a really good idea, Ryan. I went back and forth on this one. I asked 3 of my friends who are Spurs supporters, brag, and all 3 of them said that they would take
so
this.
So many friends in this episode.
That they would say Son is the legend over Harry Kane because of the agitation to leave, because Kane ultimately does leave. And just kind of, I think there's a feeling that he leaves and then has a finally I can win stuff vibe that kind of drives home more Spurs jokes, more St. Totteringham's Day and all that. Whereas
we would never do that on this show.
Never.
We would never stoop that low.
Never anyone named Ryan at all.
Not like Tottenham swooping low on the table. Boom, there it is.
Ryan Reynolds?
That's the one. He probably did make some jokes. And Son stays. He continues to kind of deal with Tottenham as they are, with different managers not having success, but ultimately winning silverware. I think there's an idea that he is a more faithful servant, a more dedicated servant to Tottenham, and so will be remembered more so as the legend than Harry Kane, who I also think, we don't know how long he will stay in Germany with Bayern Munich. I don't think he comes back to Tottenham or anything like that. I mean, maybe he does, but by then I'm not sure how big of an impact it will have. But if Bayern win the league again this year and maybe Bayern win the Champions League with Harry Kane, he starts to be more of a Bayern Munich player in some ways, I think, than a Tottenham player to memory, whereas no disrespect to LAFC, but I think Son will be forever remembered as a Tottenham player.
The only way I think this is an absolute slam dunk is if Kane goes back to Spurs. Thomas Frank was speaking about that this week. They've got a clause. And Frank said if he ever wants to come back, the door's open. So I wouldn't rule that out as a possibility, and maybe that's when Kane gets his statue.
I don't know.
It works really well for Cristiano Ronaldo.
People will be shocked to hear that I'm not the most emotionally in touch with fan bases and fan culture. I don't think.
Well,
that's
you haven't
on brand
scheduled
for me
it for
at
this
all.
window.
Well,
that's why.
Yeah, and I don't know who to talk to get down. It's just too much. It doesn't strike me that Kane going back to Tottenham would skyrocket him above Son in this conversation. I don't know. You wanted to go to Man City, and I think that's the reason why I am taking this, by the way. And the fact that every Spurs fan seems to say that it's Son, that is kind of enough for me. But it doesn't seem like Kane going back after wanting to move to the city and then actually moving to another team in Europe, unlike Son, who has moved, yes, of course. But, I mean, to decrescendo his career, unlike Kane. Kane elevated his career. It's totally different. Kane going back to Spurs is going to massively change how he's viewed by fans.
They'll lean into this was always my real home, and now I'm coming back. And I've seen it before. So I accept that rationally, Joe, I accept your point, but this isn't a rational thing.
You could totally be right about that. Now, ultimately, I think you can make an argument for both. Kane, everyone would recognize, is the better player. He's one of the greatest soccer players of all time. I mean, he's amazing. Son is excellent and truly elite. But Kane's better. But I think in terms of the legacy with Spurs and how people think about him, as we've collected a nice little bit of evidence from a number of Tottenham folks, I'm going to take this take.
Okay. I think maybe a part of that, Joe, is that with no disrespect to Harry Kane, I think Son's a lot more lovable as well, isn't he?
Yeah,
as a
totally. And that's that's a huge part of this, right? I mean, I get a little bit of this being around Phoenix Rising. You do get to see the players that have legitimate connections with fans. And that's what matters, right? I mean, Graham can be better at... I can be way better at soccer than Graham. And we both play for Phoenix Rising. But Graham is fun and Scottish and has a relationship with the fans. And I never talk to them. And Graham's going to be more loved. Graham's going to go down as the club legend and not me. And that's how I think that's kind of how it should be in that situation.
Let's be real. In that scenario of one person shying away from talking to people, out of me and Joe, we both know who that person is more likely to be.
It was fictional because I said I was better at soccer than you, which is just not true.
Okay. Maybe.
All right, there we go. And that concludes this episode of Take It or Leave It. Hope you enjoyed it, listener. We'll bring more to the feed if you did. And if you want to give us some feedback, patreon.com/TotalSoccerShow. Do so in our Discord. But for now, Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much for Teolieing with us.
My pleasure, my friend. I apologize for all of the lawyers I have brought down upon us and all of the celebrities that I have taken shots at. I'm sure they all care.
I'm sure they do. Graham Ruthven, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan Bailey.
And Joe Larry, we're just clicking over into fun time. It's over now. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's over? Oh, thanks, Ryan.
Until next time. Listener, thank you very much for joining us on this one. We're back on the feed very shortly. But for now, bye!